We're about to turn this into this. Stay tuned for floored.tv. Hello everybody, I hope you're doing well. It's Lane here with floored.tv, and it sure has been a long time since I put out any videos on this channel, but luckily I have a ton of footage and a ton of different pictures from jobs that I have done for the last couple years, and that's exactly what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to start putting these videos back together and posting them on this channel. The job that I'm documenting today is all the way out in Basin, Wyoming. Now, odds are you've probably never actually heard of this little town in Wyoming, so I'm going to go ahead and show you on Google Earth exactly how to get there. Wyoming is actually one of the most interesting states in America because as far as the land mass goes, the square miles, there's actually less people occupying that amount of land than any other state in America. Basin, Wyoming is settled in this incredibly beautiful little river valley, and there's not a huge population by any means. And you can see by looking at the landscape exactly why Basin got the name that it did. In addition to the unique landscape, there's also a whole host of historic buildings scattered throughout the area. Now, the building that we were working in at the time is the Laura Irwin Elementary, and this was in August 2020, and at the time, this building was under construction. So at this point, the subfloor has been completely finished, and the bundles have been thrown out and allowed to acclimate for a few weeks. The first thing I did was I got the starter row in place so that I could start the process of racking the floor. The material that we're installing on this job is made by Robbins. It's second and better, and it's called Excel. These are actually 8-foot long boards that are finger jointed together to give it added strength. It's important to walk over the rack as you're racking so that you can make sure that none of the joints are lining up. And as you can see, the racking process was going pretty quickly, and the color was turning out very nice. When I was on my lunch break, I played with filters on my phone and came up with this. Now I've got the first half of the floor all racked out. The second half followed. Now the entire floor is racked out. Now all I have left is to rack the ends so that I can start the process of nailing the hardwood down. It's important to remember when you're racking these end joints to leave plenty of distance. This gives it strength and also spaces the joints so it looks nice. And another thing you want to keep in mind is that when you're doing these doorways, by placing the boards where you need them ahead of time, it saves you a lot of time during the installation process. And you also want to keep 1.5 to 2 inches around the entire perimeter of the floor for contraction and expansion. These boards generally grow towards the tongue, but you want to make sure that the butt joints have plenty of space as well. And after a quick check of the moisture content of the maple flooring, it looks like we're right where we want to be. Now that everything's checked out, I've started the process of nailing the maple flooring down to the subfloor. Since these are such long runs and I'm working by myself, I only nailed half the floor at a time, but it's important to remember not to drop all your rows in the same spot or it could leave a huge hump in the floor.
Don't hesitate, tell you right, I can relate, never mind. The great divide.
So after a couple of incredibly brutal days nailing the maple down to the subfloor, I finally got to the point to where I'm within about 4 feet of the first wall on the first half of the floor. During the course of this job, I was working some long hours from about 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, just so that I could pack more hours in the day to get this job done sooner so that the general contractor could save a little bit of time because they were already a little behind schedule. So now I've buttoned up against the wall and done the pull-ups. The first half of the floor is completely done, so now I can work on getting the second half done so that I can go home. The wall on the second half of the floor is just getting closer and closer with every row. And at this point, I was starting to get that anticipation of finally getting to go home again. Because generally after being out on the road for about a week, you really start to miss home. And then it gets to the point where you start working even harder just so you can get there quicker. Now, I've finally racked the last little section right by the doorways, and I noticed when I was doing this that there was all this dust and debris kind of blowing up underneath the doors. So when I went outside, this is what I saw.
It's blowing like crazy out here. Right outside the job.
One thing that you will notice when you're installing the Robins Excel finger jointed material is that since these 8-foot boards have smaller boards contained within them, a lot of times when you rack the floors out, there will be sections where these joints that are finger jointed will line up with each other. These aren't considered to be common joints since it is finger jointed, but a lot of times I'll stop and just make a little adjustments in the rack because I don't like the way it looks if too many of these joints are lining up. As you can see now, I'm getting really close. I got about 2 stand-up rows to go and this floor is done.
Hey guys, it's Levi with Floor.tv. Just finishing up this job here in Basin, Wyoming. The floor has turned out fabulous. I mean, it looks great. I'm super excited. These guys are just absolutely going to love this floor. As you can see here behind me, I'm just getting to this last little bit. I've got about 5 feet to the wall, and then the job will be finished. So, I'm getting real excited. The community has been showing up in droves, taking a look at the floor, and everybody around is really excited to open up this new school and get going. And they are absolutely going to love this floor. There's hardly any flaws in it. It's not very often that a floor works out this well, and they're going to just be super thrilled with this floor. It's going to perform incredibly well. I'm just super excited. These Robin systems are absolutely amazing. They go down so perfect, so well. And this Robin's patented 8-foot material is the best. It's the absolute best on the market. I mean, you cannot get any material better than this. This finger jointed material, top of the line, the best. Here's a look at it. So, let's see, today is 4, 5, 6, day 7. So I've installed this entire 6,250 foot floor in just about a week, all by myself. So there's a look at it, but I'm gonna get back to work.
Now the entire installation is complete. I can finally get ready to get my tools out of here and go home. Now I've buttoned up both of the walls. I've also double checked around the entire perimeter of the floor to make sure that none of the wood was sticking any closer than 1.5 inches to the wall, because if any of those boards touch the wall in the future, it could cause that whole section of the floor to buckle. And since it's all covered with rubber base that's generally glued to the wall, it's incredibly difficult to find them again without removing all of the rubber base, and nobody wants to do that. Here's a shot of the floor from the first half. As you can see, the color looks beautiful. This floor just brings this room to life, and the kids are gonna love it. The floor is completely broom swept. All the scrap material has been thrown in the dumpster. I've saved a little bit of the leftover maple for some of the faculty here that wanted to use it for a craft project. And at this point, my tools are loaded and I'm ready to go. Here's a shot of the gymnasium from the outside. As you can see, it's pretty late because I was working long hours. I left the next morning after this picture was taken. The county sheriff actually stopped by this project quite a few times during the process of the installation. He was a really nice guy and we got along very well. He was actually a school board member, so he had a vested interest in seeing the school done properly, as well as this floor being installed properly. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Floor.tv, documenting the installation of the floor at the Laura Irwin Elementary in Basin, Wyoming. It truly was a blessing to have the opportunity to come out here and actually install this floor for the local community. And I also just wanted to quickly mention that my band, The Great Falling Away, wrote and recorded all of the music that you heard in this episode today. And if you liked what you heard, you can go to the description box below and click on the link, and you can download this entire album or whichever songs you liked absolutely free. There's also a link that you can use to donate crypto or fiat to me to compensate me for all the time I've put into this. And I thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.